The latest iteration of Dragon Ball ended on a high note with the introduction of the most badass transformation in the history of anime. And today we're going to be drawing Ultra Instinct in all of its badassedness. But to be fair, we're actually going to be drawing the base version of Ultra Instinct because I found this image and I really like what they're doing with the artwork here. So this is what we're going to go with. So for your reference, I'm also going to include the link to the source image in the description below. And there I'm also going to have the materials we're going to be using. It's basically standard computer paper and HB drawing pencil, as well as the size and placement for the starting cube so that you can follow along to me. That's all I gotta say, so let's go ahead and get started with the drawing process. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start to fill in our cube that we've already drawn out here. And we're going to start by drawing the outside of his face. Now there's going to be two lines here. The bottom of this first line is going to go up to the bottom of his eyes, and the second line is going to go out to his jaw, and it's going to go a little bit past that this intersection over here. And I think actually his eyes should be maybe closer to there. Yeah, these two lines should be about even length. So now we're going to bring the jaw down almost to the bottom, but not quite. Make his chin right there. Again, we're not touching that bottom line. And his other jaw is going to line up over here. And right over here, not quite in the center, a little bit off center, we're going to end the outside of his face. The next thing we want to do is to draw the crease between his eyes, and also after that we're going to go to his nose and his eyes. Before I do that, let me go ahead and draw the center line for his face to make it a little bit easier to follow along. So that's a pretty good spot for the center line. Let's go ahead and draw the crease between his eyes. Did I do that correctly? Maybe. Let's keep drawing and see how it turns out, because I feel like it's not following. Let's draw one more line over here, okay? Two more lines actually. So here's the first one. That's obviously just for the jawline. And let's follow the second line over here for his eyes. No, you see? That's how you know. That's how you know that it's not lining up. So let's fix that before it becomes a big problem down the road. Always want to make sure you're drawing everything symmetrically. Otherwise, it's going to look unnatural. Now, for his nose, we do want it to end up over here, okay? So this is going to be the intersection of his nose. Pretty easy to follow along too. And the top of his nose is going to be below this center line over here. Let's actually make that a little bit more curvy. Bring that down, and there we go. So the top, I'm going to actually make a little bit more space for the bridge of his nose, and then I'll bring it down. It doesn't need to be too big. Yeah, that's a pretty good looking nose. Don't need to spend much time there. So the next thing we're going to do is to draw his mouth, which is going to be below his jawline. When I say his jawline, by the way, I'm talking about this line over here. A little bit of it's going to be on this side of this center line, and most of his mouth is going to be on the opposite side. It's a little bit too high. I'm going to stick with that for now, but I might lower it just a tad bit later on. Now his bottom lip, that's what this line is over here. All right, good enough for now. So let's move on to his eyes. And we already made that kind of easy, right? Because we drew this, that's the whole point of this line over here. Let me lower a little bit. Man, it's really tough to draw a nice line when I got this piece of paper taped down to the table. But, you know, when you're recording a video, you kind of have to tape it down. All right, so we got this line over here to work with, so let's use it. And the top of his eyes are also going to form the bottom of his eyebrows. And we're not going to worry about the top of his eyebrows just yet. We'll deal with that after we finish drawing the other side of his eye. Again, same distance away from the crease between his eyes. And this side of his eye is going to be a little bit further away from the outside of his face. Man, I got to kind of pivot my whole body here. Otherwise, for sure, that line is not going to end up looking correct. So I'm not going to put too much detail here above his eye because I already know we're going to cover most of that with his hair. We already know what the final product is going to look like. On the other side, though, we are going to want to draw most of his eyebrow. Pull that down. Okay. Now for his pupils, he's looking to his left, so that's where we're going to draw them. Nice and big. Add a little more. Actually, we'll go ahead and add the details for the eyes right now. Otherwise, it's going to look kind of silly while we're working on the rest of him. Make that a little bigger. Why not? Let's go ahead and shade it in too while I'm at it. And good enough for now. We'll clean it up later. Let's do the other side. Now, most of this eye is going to be hidden by that eyebrow. Okay, so let's draw some of the details around the top of his eyes. Some of the lines underneath of his eyes. Man, okay, so we're good with the face, I think. Let's actually make this a little bit wider. I was kind of questioning this earlier too. Let's make it a little bit wider. How much time is that? What are we up to? 14 minutes. Man, we're 14 minutes deep in this already. I haven't even finished drawing the face yet. Okay, anyways, let's go ahead and finish drawing the rest of his face. We'll start with the ear. Oh, half of my drawings usually are drawing the face, to be honest with you. I need to stop doing that. And a little S shape there for his ear. Same thing on the other side. Little S shape there. We'll fill in the details later. Okay, time for us to go ahead and start drawing his hair. So we're going to draw two pieces here on the, it's not going to line up perfectly. See, that's why we have this little bit of curve over here to that first line. But we're going to start right here. Go past this line that we just drew. And like I said, this is going to cover, this hair is going to cover his most of his eyebrow, which is why we didn't add all those details earlier. All the way up to right there. Let's make that nice and thick to make it obvious. Okay, this is going to go a little bit past the eyebrow actually. It's going to be a real big piece. So it's going to go all the way to the corner over here. The corner of that cube. And the other hair on this side, let's actually lower it even more, to be honest with you. It's going to line up perfectly with that middle line. Okay, so that's the first hair. The second hair is going to be right here. It's going to be just outside of this eyebrow. Kind of curve around there all the way to the bottom of the eye. All right, looks about right. And we'll go up to about maybe a little under the center of that cube. Okay. Hope that's easy to see. I'll redefine the lines a little bit later. On the other side, we're going to draw this one big hair, which is going to cut across his face. Clip the top of his eyebrow a little bit. And this is actually going to be a good segue into the top of his head. So you just kind of follow that same path from that hair. The top of his head's going to stop right there. Okay, so next is going to be his neck, which is just going to fall down from the middle of his ear over here. All right, so while we're zoomed in, let's go ahead and draw the rest of his hair from here. Can I fit that? Yeah, I think I can fit it in. So in the middle of his neck over here, we're going to start this hair. And from right here, the corner of his ear, we're going to start the second hair. And outside of that box, we're going to have the third hair. No, that's going to go down a little bit sharper angle. And right underneath where we stopped over here, or actually perfect, right off of this middle line over here, we're going to draw this little separation for his outside hair. And the last hair is going to start right here. And we'll erase that because we don't need it. And you know what? While we're zoomed in, let's go ahead and draw the fist that he's going to have coming in from the outside as well. So it's going to start right about here. There goes his thumb. Let me speed it up because I'm going way too slow here. This is actually a little bit too low. You don't want to be as low as his mouth. I would say we probably want to stop right at the top of his mouth. That's where we want to stop. So let's go ahead and set that as a boundary for ourselves. We'll start again over here. There's the inside of his neck. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do here before we start actually getting into the details is I'm going to draw some large shapes because we don't want to draw a bunch of details and we don't know where we're going. So first thing we're going to do here is draw his shoulder. I think that's about right. It's going to be outside of this box over here for sure. Okay. Now let's go ahead and draw his biceps, and it's going to be covering his shoulder to a good extent. His bicep and his tricep. All the way up to his elbow, which is going to be a little bit off center over here. So let's have his elbow right there. Okay, there goes his biceps and his triceps. And as you can see, this shape is going to be covering up his shoulder. Now we got one more thing we need to fit in here, and that's going to be his forearm. This actually needs to go a little bit past here. So his shoulder is going to be closer to that line. And this is going to bulge outside that line too. Okay, there we go. What a weird shape, huh? Kind of have to eyeball this stuff. Sorry if it looks weird. So here comes his forearm. And it's going to be, again, just outside of this middle line over here is where we're going to stop. Okay. And and it's going to extend from his elbow to about just a little bit inside of this corner here. So we're going to start with his forearm. That's when we're going to start coming back in again. I would say right about here, right? I think that looks good. And right about here is where we're going to start drawing that wristband of his. Not really a wristband, they're actually very heavy weights. Or armband, I guess I could say. And at the top of this corner where this line meets, we're going to start his wrist. And this is where we're going to start drawing his hand. Let's get rid of these overlapping lines first, just so they don't cause some confusion. Oh, by the way, here's the shape for the bicep. Guess I should just include that now. Bicep and tricep over here. And his elbow, and I'm getting way ahead of myself. I just can't help myself. Okay, gotta stop there. Okay, so for his hand, you're gonna have to kind of eyeball this, but basically his wrist, the top of his knuckle is gonna meet about this line, but underneath of it a little bit. Create some distance from that fist as well. So maybe right here. I think that should be fine. And this line here, this is very important. This is where his knuckles are going to line up. So you want to make sure you draw that reference line. Okay, so keep in mind that this line that I've drawn over here is going to be about 2.5 inches out. And a general line for the knuckles is going to be about 1 inch out. So let's draw 1 inch out. Some of the knuckles are going to be, further in. Some of them are going to be further out. So this first knuckle is going to be a little bit closer inside. It's going to be closer to the halfway point between this line and that line. What we're going to do is go halfway on the hand, okay? This is where the first gap is going to be. All right. Now we're going to start the second one. The most important thing here is not even that it looks clean and organized and neat and artistic. The main point here is just to make sure we got everything in the right place so that we can do the next step, which is to actually add the details. All right, that looks pretty darn good. So now we can continue to the next step. which is to draw the rest of his body. So I'm actually going to start with his belt line here. So we can create some separation from his lower body and his upper body. And his belt line is actually going to start from this bottom knuckle over here. It's going to go all the way down. So very, very easy there. We're not even going to draw the top of his belt line because it's going to be covered up with some more fabric in a second. So here's that fabric that's covering up the belt line. Okay, so now for his outer shirts, it's time to draw a little bit of his back. This is a general shape. We're not going to draw the tears in his shirt just yet. But as a general shape, is going to be getting covered up by this blue shirt over here. This is his collar. And that collar is going to go all the way down to meet his wristband. All right. And let's draw the outside here. The outside of his pants are going to be going off of this ring finger over here. And the middle of his pants are going to be off of this little bump that I created over here. It's going to end up not quite in the corner of the page, but a little above it. The last thing we're going to do here before we go back to drawing his hair, is drawing his chest. Not a whole lot of detail here. We're going to have his neck kind of go down, and it's going to meet the top of his chest, but the middle of the chest is going to be way off to the side over here. Okay, and then we'll just draw the outside of his shirts, and we'll be all set to continue with drawing his hair. And here I'm going to get a little ahead of myself and just draw some of the tears. Okay, so now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and finish drawing his hair. Cool, so he's going to have one little hair kind of going off the corner of this starting square. Coming right back down. And one of his big hairs is going to start, I would say, over here. But it's going to be covered up by another hair that I'm going to draw soon. And the outside of that hair is going to be connected to the smaller hair that we just drew. I made that go a little bit too high, I think. Let's cut that down a notch. The source image doesn't really cover the top of the page, so I'm making it up as I go along. If it doesn't look right, I'll try to fix it afterwards when I'm doing the details. So right over here towards the bottom of that hair, we're going to start the next one. And it's going to go a little bit further out outside of that fist. And actually, it's going to kind of meet the top of this knuckle here. Let's see if I can have it go back that far out without making it look weird. And it looks like there's a couple hairs on the outside that we're going to add. So we'll add one here. And we'll add another one over here and see how that looks. If it doesn't look good, I'll take a look at it later and might fix it. I'm kind of just going off the top of my head here. I think that's how it's going to look if they finished, if they finish the drawing, because his artwork kind of cuts off halfway up the hair. Cuts up halfway up the hair. It doesn't show his whole hair set is what I'm saying. So we're gonna let this be the primary hair. I'm gonna shrink the two outside of it. Otherwise, they're kind of conflicting with one another. All right, looks much better. All right, let's clean up a little bit and then we'll start adding the details to our image. And at this point, there isn't really much for me to add to this drawing. I kind of wish I drew it faster. It's kind of been my Achilles heel. I am way too slow. One drawing in 2 hours. Most of the people watching this can do it faster than that. Yeah, like I said, I don't really have too much else to add to this tutorial, so I'm probably going to speed up the rest of it. And I'll see you guys at the end of the video.